What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you are reading the title of this video, then you know exactly what the video is going to be about. I want to discuss with you my experience when it comes to using performance enhancing drugs or steroids. If you have been following me for quite some time, I've been rather open about this, even though I haven't necessarily discussed it in detail. Last year I did make a video basically saying that drugs have destroyed bodybuilding, and what I mean by that is the abuse of the stuff. Now, of course, I understand that drugs have been used for years, even back then when Arnold was competing. But I just feel like, we've allowed the bodies to kind of get distorted in a sense. It just, in order to be able to be highly competitive, it just takes a lot of steroids, a lot of drugs. And that's just the reality of the situation. You're gonna have your outliers where, I'm sure some people don't take as much stuff, but for the most part, they take a lot of stuff because I've been there. And that's exactly what we're gonna be talking about in today's video. So I wanna kind of go back to the beginning and what started this whole journey. When I was 18 years old, I competed at the Teen National show. And that was basically the first time that I was kind of exposed to the reality of it, in a sense, even though of course I've competed in shows before that and I knew people were using, but this was just a whole nother level because I thought that going to Teen Nationals I was going to be rather competitive, and boy was I wrong. Yeah, it turned out to be I still placed top 5. I was actually tied for 5th that year, but yeah, that's when I realized that there were definitely some levels to this game. So my coach at the time, when we went up to the hotel, we discussed it. He was like, all right, Jonathan, you're 18. You can still come back at 19. If you want to do it, you want to come back and win, then you know what it takes now. It's not something that I want to push on you, but I'm just letting you know the reality of the situation. So I sat on it for a long time, some months. I think it didn't really dawn on me until come January, whenever I wanted to prep for the Ronnie Coleman Classic. I did this show like 4 years in a row as a teenager, and it was my last year, and I was like, you know what, I want to come back, do my thing. So I let him know. I was like, hey, I think I'm ready. And that was the first time I ever experienced it, using something beyond what you would get at your local supplement store. So that time, the first thing I ever used was some Anavar and some Novadex. I wasn't ready so much for injecting anything into my body at that point. I was still pretty scared of needles and stuff like that. So yeah, just Anavar, if you guys know, it's a very mild drug, slight anabolic. It's nothing too crazy. Even girls take it. But I basically ran, if I can remember correctly, 60 milligrams a day. That, already, just that alone made a substantial difference in the way my physique looked. I put on about 20 pounds from the year prior, which was pretty crazy. So yeah, that just was like, whoa, okay, this stuff is the real deal. So leading into the Teen Nationals, I had a few more months left. We decided to dive in a little bit deeper, and that's whenever I was obviously exposed to the other stuff, the real stuff. So my first ever cycle was basically testosterone, propionate, and I used Masteron. So we went 300 milligrams of each every week, and then I incorporated some Winstrol. I think it was 20 milligrams a day, basically the last 4 weeks up until the show. And I actually ended up winning my class at the show. It was a bit of a controversial show that year because the kid that really won that day was 20 years old, and they disqualified him later on the day. But since the show was already over, there was no overall. So they just went ahead and gave it to the middleweight that year. So that pretty much ended up being the situation for Team Nationals. So yeah, being exposed to the real stuff and seeing the difference that it made in my physique, of course, it just made me hungrier. Just growing up in general, I was always a very competitive person, and I guess that's what kind of led me into bodybuilding as well, because I was done playing sports. So I needed another outlet for myself to kind of take that sort of drive that I had as I was growing up, in a sense, with sports. So anyways, the following year is whenever I took that up to another notch, and the first time I was ever exposed to using growth hormone. And I really feel like, in all honesty, it really brought my physique to a whole nother level. And you know, I know that it's like kind of has a delayed effect, but no joke. So the following year, I went from competing at 186 that year, 186, 190ish, to 215 pounds at the collegiate nationals. I ended up placing second. You know, honestly, I could have won if I would have came in prepared, but that wasn't the case. So me being the hungry individual that I am, I came back to the collegiate nationals and ended up winning the following year in 2011, pretty much doing the exact same cycle. With that particular cycle, we stepped it up a little bit. I ended up using like Sustanon. So I would probably run around 750 to 1,000 milligrams of testosterone. I also included equipoise. I would do 400 milligrams of that a week. And then of course, you know, like I mentioned, the growth. And then as we dialed it, so what you would do is you'll use something like that. So you have your building kind of, you know, drugs, and then you have your hardening drugs. And as we get closer, around 6 to 8 week mark is whenever you start reintroducing some of the hardeners like Tren, Masteron, etc. So that's kind of just the way that I would structure it for myself personally. I would just run, you know, start running the Tren around 8 weeks out, and along with the Masteron, and then I would include Winstrol around 4 weeks out, just because it's a bit of a harsher drug. But you know, and the reason why I'm talking about this, guys, is because this is basically what bodybuilding is. These are the supplements that are basically being used all the time. You know, so yeah, I never dove into using things like Anadrol and D-bol. They just, you know, they never really appealed to me. You know, with excess water retention and things like that, it was something that kind of turned me off a little bit. So it was nothing that I really wanted to use with myself personally. Other drugs that are involved whenever it comes to prepping with shows is clenbuterol, which is going to be like your fat burner. You know, certain people use T3, which is a thyroid hormone. I know I've used it in the past. People will even add up T4 as well. Then you have Proviron, you have Halotestin, which is like the crazy drug. Like if you ever use Halotestin, just know that it's going to spark and ignite a fire within you. And it's probably one of the most dangerous drugs to have if you have a relationship. Just put it that way. It's some crazy stuff, guys. And basically what I wanted to kind of dive into the end part of this video is just how this stuff affects your mental health. It can really mess with you guys. It can really mess with you, and this is why I don't ever really recommend anyone taking them. If you're not looking to become a pro bodybuilder at any one point in your life, and that is not an end goal for you, do not dive into this stuff recreationally. There's no point. You're basically playing God with your endocrine system, and that's a dangerous game to play. So yeah. The mental health aspect of using these things is something else, because it can play mind games with you. You know, you start like I said, it's like, you know, you start like igniting these flames. You get a little bit more irritated, and then on top of that, now you incorporate the dieting aspect of things, so it just makes things 10 times worse than what it would normally do. So yeah, just, you know, be careful if this is something you end up diving into. Like I said, this is just talking about my personal experience using these things and how I've ever felt using them. With this past show that I did, I still ended up using a little bit of stuff. I just wanted to make sure that I kept things to the minimum, just because, you know, I've gone down that route of abusing the drugs. Towards closer to the show, I did include things like Tren and Masteron, just some simple hardeners, but nothing too crazy. I never went past 200 milligrams with any of the doses. Yeah, just because I didn't feel like there was a need. You know, in hindsight, I could have done things differently whenever it came to the diet. That's for damn sure. I think I was like in such a different mode, and I was focusing so much on how I feel, or how I felt rather, that I wasn't able to really like perfect the diet per se, knowing how I know how to do it. But yeah, so if I ever dive into another show, just keep in mind, guys, this is exactly what's involved in these things. If this was something you thoroughly enjoyed, just give the video a thumbs up. I know it's something probably different from some of you guys seeing on this channel, but I wanted to kind of open up and give you guys the reality of what bodybuilding can be, just kind of talk to you guys about what it is. But anyways, till next time, everybody, peace out.